Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another movie review. Today's review is of another M. Night Shyamalan movie, and this is the one he did after Signs. And it's usually where people that hate him, usually for reasons which I will address. I think I addressed him in the last video, so you guys already know what it is. You know, it's mostly his writing, not his directing. This is where that people started to hate on him for that. There was a little bit with Signs, but it wasn't really prevalent. I mean, it was mostly with the nature of the aliens, I guess, and some bits of dialogue, but it was here that it really got steamrolling. Anyway, it, of course, is the fantasy thriller The Village. Now, Signs, as I mentioned, that and The Sixth Sense up until recently were the only one of his movies that I even saw. I mean, I'd heard of this movie, obviously, and I saw bits and pieces of it. Lady in the Water I knew of but never saw. The Happening I heard of only once, and that's when it was like M. Night Shyamalan's first R-rated movie, and then after that, never heard anything about it. And of course, the movie that will not be named, which you guys already know what movie I'm talking about, the only one of his movies I've done a full-on rant on. But I decided that, even though I already knew the twist ending for this movie, which apparently this is the last of his movies with a full-on twist, from one reviewer who actually is a big fan of his actually mentioned, so I'm gonna go into the next couple movies not expecting a twist, but anyway. And I already knew the twist in this movie, and I was went into this movie wondering how it was gonna be executed. Let's just say I wasn't too disappointed. And I guess you could tell by how I'm acting that this is not a rant. It doesn't say it up there. Before I get into anything, my thoughts on the film, it was okay. It was an okay movie. It's not a movie that I would say, it's not a movie where I would go all Chester A-bomb and go, oh my god, it's the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. But it's not, but it's not to the point where I would go Chester A-bomb in that one video. Oh my god, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It's middle. It has some good notes. I'll get to them. I'm going to go into the plot a little bit first. The plot is that we got this small village that's apparently out in the middle of the woods. They live in fear of these nameless creatures that live in their woods. And at night they build a big barrier of oil lanterns, and they have watchtowers that are manned to keep out for them when they call these creatures those we don't speak of. Obviously they don't have a name. It is explained that the villagers have a long-standing truce with the monsters. Villagers don't go into the woods. The creatures do not enter the village. Sounds like a good bargain to me. And of course, eventually the skinned bodies of small animals start to appear around the village, so it makes them wondering what's going on. Are the creatures gonna do something? Not long after that, there's a funeral of a 7-year-old boy. We get one of our main characters, Lucius Hunt, played by Joaquin Phoenix. He asks the village elders for permission to pass through the woods to get medical supplies from the towns. His request is denied, and he is admonished by his mother, Alice, who is played by Sigourney Weaver, which I will say I did not expect to see her in this movie, so that was a surprise. He's admonished by his mother, for wanting to go to the towns, which the villagers describe as a wicked place where wicked people live. Is it just me, or does it sound like this village is run by conservative Christians? That's what it just sounds like. That's just what it sounds like. Anyway, the elders seem to have their own dark secrets to keep in boxes, which you can pay attention, that's important later. And just so everyone knows, when I discuss the movie, I am going to spoil the twist ending, so if you don't want the ending to be spoiled, the reason I'm talking about it is everyone already knows the twist ending for this movie. I mean, everyone talks about it, word of mouth has carried it, so, and I have to discuss the twist ending to just say why I think the movie's okay. So this is probably going to be one of the few reviews where I actually go into really in-depth spoilers. Anyway, and then we are soon introduced to our secondary main character, who is Ivy Walker, who is played by Bryce Dallas Howard, which this was her breakout role, apparently. But I'll get to that in a little bit. She's the blind daughter of the chief elder, who's Edward Walker, played, I wouldn't say beautifully, but he's played pretty good by William Hurt. And of course, Ivy and Lucius are to be married, but then one day he is stabbed by Noah Percy, who was a young man with who's apparently mentally challenged, and he's played by Adrian Brody. And I have to say, Adrian does a pretty good job of playing a person who's mentally handicapped. I wouldn't say it's like an award-winning performance, but it just it shows off his acting chops a lot. And apparently he does this because he's in love with Ivy as well. And then, of course, now Ivy has to go into the woods, to the towns, to get medicine for Lucius because he's dying. Not from the wound, but from an infection he's getting, so he has to go there. And, of course, it's from there we learn the twist, which I will address later in the video. So if you just want to hear some of my thoughts, I'm going to address the twist ending last. So you guys will have enough time to turn it off if you actually want to hear the rest of my thoughts on the movie. You know, I'll give you guys a 10-second pause before I get to the twist. Anyway, first I think I should address the actors. Joaquin Phoenix, I always liked him in acting. I mean, I liked him in Signs. I thought he did a great job as Commodus in Gladiator. He did Johnny Cash beautifully. Here, it's a good performance. I'll say nothing award-winning, but the main problem I have is his character. I know we're supposed to like Lucius, but he just seems kind of like a hollow character to me. I mean, he's just there. For me, he's just there to give Ivy a reason to have to go to the woods. I mean, that's it. The only time I ever felt anything for him was when he got stabbed by Noah, and that's only because of Noah's reaction. I'm like, you're stabbing him because she wasn't in love with you, she was in love with him? Noah. Yeah, but then again, you can't really blame Noah. Noah's mentally handicapped, so you gotta give some leadway. Like I've already said, Adrian, good performance. Bryce, she doesn't, I have to say, for her first major role, she does a pretty good job, and of course, she was also in the next film that Shyamalan did. And of course, she was in Eclipse, breaking the Twilight movie Eclipse. But she was also in Spider-Man 3, and I knew I recognized her from somewhere watching this movie. I'm like, and then I checked, she played Gwen Stacy. I have to say, Gwen Stacy is one of the few things in that movie I do like, which I'll get to it one day when I review that movie. But I have to say, I liked her as Ivy. Sigourney Weaver, for what she has, she does pretty well. The rest of the adult actors are pretty good. M. Night Shyamalan's cameo, I think, is very great. It's subtle. You can't really see him except in a reflection, unless you recognize his voice fully. I knew where he was, but I didn't notice it was him, right away. And then I saw his reflection. I'm like, oh, it's M. Night. And if there's one thing I will say, I like that M. Night does like little cameos in his films. It's kind of cool. My favorite one is probably the funniest one is his cameo in Unbreakable, where he's the drug smuggler guy. That's just kind of funny. The people that don't like M. Night will probably say that explains a lot. But anyway, the acting in the movie, okay, not good, not very good to where you're like, this should get an Oscar, but not bad to where you're like, I don't believe it. There's better acting in porno movies, not that bad. Now, the best thing I will say about this movie is its score by James Howard, which he actually got an Oscar nomination for, which I actually want to get this score eventually to put a couple parts on my MP3 player. And also, M. Night's direction is still at the top of his game. I mean, the way he sets up the camera angles, how he lights the scenes, a little bit of his use of color, like the use of the color red and the color yellow, that's kind of cool. And of course, the shadows and stuff, how he uses it, it's still good. And I didn't really notice that many use of elaborate special effects, but the only really elaborate special effect is the creatures, those we don't speak of, and it's a practical effect. It's a practical effect. It's a suit, so that's pretty cool. Now, of course, I got to address the last thing. So, for those of you who don't want to do it, you might want to wait for the video fully load, and then probably skim through the video. Okay, starting now, you got 10 seconds to pause. Alright, break over. Gotta get a new battery. Anyway, now of course, the twist ending we find out, of course I have to address this, is that it's not the 1800s like we thought. It's actually present day, and these elders actually were members of a therapy session that decided to cut themselves off from the world because of the evil, because they've all suffered a grief at one point. I'm not going to spoil what it is because it's there, and that they did a bunch of elaborate stuff to try to keep them away from the outside world. Like they paid off the government to make it a no-fly zone. Which, of course, that's the only thing I want. That's the only thing that's kind of only subtly mentioned. And I'm like, what? Listen, they have a range. They have the whole place walled off and called a wildlife preserve, and they have rangers make sure no one goes in because they don't want the animals to be disturbed. And that is about it. The only other extent thing is that they trick their children into thinking that they're living in that year. Now, it's a twist that when you're like, what? It is subtly mentioned earlier when Ivy is told by her father that the creatures are a farce, and then when the adults are talking their subtle dialogue, it's not blatantly stayed out because they're out in public, so they don't want the children to hear, so they're saying it in code, kind of. And you're like, if they lied about the animals, what else did they lie about? And then, of course, it comes out like, oh, so that's what they lied about. That's what they meant earlier. And the twist, the way they actually explain it, I have to say I don't mind it. I mean, it's not the best twist ending. I mean, let me just say, the twists in Unbreakable and in Sixth Sense were better done, I will say. And from what I hear, it's probably a good thing he stopped with twist ending, especially because people are always making fun of him, like Robot Chicken, with the what a twist thing. But the only part of the twist I would actually have liked to have explained more is the whole paid off thing. I mean, granted, I know the guy was a professor, but how did he get enough money to pay off the government, whether state or federal, to make that place a no-fly zone? And it opens up some questions. Do they constantly have to keep paying them off? Was it just a one payment and they just made it a no-fly zone and just kept it that way? As more people came in, they're like, oh, it's been a no-fly zone. Why? Don't ask questions. You just don't want it. Because that's one thing that I was discussing with Jeff before I watched this movie. We were talking about, well, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Okay, so this explains two other things. It explains why no planes have gone over, so the kids are like, what devil be that? Oh, it's the flying demon! Or why no hikers go in, because I have the thing. Of course, it doesn't explain, like, do people sneak into the woods? I'm thinking there's a lot of woods, so maybe they get caught before they go in, but the movie just never explains it. I guess it just leaves it to make you up your own mind, but it still makes you wonder about that and stuff. And then, of course, it makes you wonder, do any of the park rangers ask any questions? Because it seems the one ranger that she runs into is asking a little bit of question, and then the ranger tells them not to ask any questions, which is ironically the one that's played by M. Night Shyamalan. It's like, do not ask any questions. I don't know why I made him sound like Arnold like that. Do not ask any questions, you pretty girly man. Don't get back to your ranger work. Yeah, Arnold is a ranger. That'd be cool. He comes in with a gun to shoot the creatures. Get down! I'm going to take care of these creatures once and for all. Hello, Molly. As Molly's in here. But anyway, all this stuff together just makes the movie okay. Not good, not bad. Like I said, not the best twist ending, but the way it's explained, I can live with it, even though it should have been explained better. And also how the movie fully ends, it kind of feels a little anticlimactic. I mean, she gets back with the medicine, alright, so you know Lucy's going to be fine, but then it kind of cuts out anticlimactic. But I will say the whole thing about the adults being in the kind of conspiracy, it's kind of scary if you think about it. Because it's like if you take the Amish, you know, they don't like technology and stuff, and you just take it one step further. Because the Amish, they live in our world, but they just don't use technology for religious reasons. You know, they don't take pictures themselves, you know, for not wanting to have pride in our life and stuff. But they at least accept that we're there with them, and of course they'll do business with us and stuff, and you know, they won't try to force their views on us if we don't try to force ours on them. So it's kind of, you know, like it's kind of coexisting, which I think coexisting is fine, you know, tolerance and stuff. But this takes this one step further. It's like gives the finger to the real world and like, no, we're gonna make this whole illusion stuff. It's just kind of creepy if you think about it, a whole illusion and stuff, and it makes you wonder how, just from some of the stuff we see in the movie, you mean, even of course with the creatures, how far would they go to make it a secret? And that's one of the, they make that point at the end, which kind of makes it scary, but it also, combined with just a nice ending for the kids, it kind of makes it a little bit anticlimactic depending on your view. But it's still scary. It makes you wonder what else the parents would do. I mean, would they actually... It hints that they would probably kill someone in order to keep it, but what would they do if an outsider showed up in the middle of the night? Would they kill him just to make sure no one asked any questions? Would they just say he's from the town, that's how they dress or something? And if the guy tried to start talking, would they then silence him saying he's crazy or something? It just brings up all that. And that's kind of scary. But that's one of the strengths of the movie, that. Like I said, the acting, okay. M. Night, he wrote the screenplay himself. He probably should have done another draft to tighten it a little bit, but like I said, the strong points of the movie are the score and M. Night's direction. Because, like, with the characters and stuff, I mean, the only character I really cared about was Ivy, and that's during the last part of the movie. I mean, during the rest of it, I didn't feel a connection to any of the characters. I mean, I heard the reasons. I'm like, okay, you don't want your son dying. Okay, that's understandable. Okay, you stabbed him, alright. I didn't feel a connection to the characters. It's not like Unbreakable, where you actually see. And it's not like Unbreakable where you understand the two main characters and what they're going through in the movie. It's not like Signs where you really feel for Mel Gibson's character and his family and stuff, and you really want to see them survive the aliens. It's even not like The Sixth Sense where at the end you feel sad for Bruce Willis's character, and also you feel kind of sad for the kid because he sees all these dead people and stuff, and you know he's gonna go with them throughout his life. It's with him you feel the same way for him that you feel for Danny in The Shining. Kind of sad. I mean, that's the one thing. His direction is still there, but character-wise, it goes downhill. I mean, you got The Sixth Sense, you feel for the character. You got Unbreakable, you connect with the character. Then you got Signs, you're rooting a little bit for the characters. And then here, you're indifferent to the characters. That's why it's just okay. If I were to give it a rating, in all honesty, a 3 out of 5. I would say if you haven't seen the movie, I'd say before you make fun of the movie, I'd say at least watch it once. I mean, if you don't like the movie, if you absolutely hate the movie, okay, I can see why you would, but I just find it okay. Would I buy the DVD for $1 maybe just to see the special features or something if they're not on YouTube, which I have a feeling they might not be, but if they are, I'll give them a watch. Is it? As you can tell, it's not a movie I'd watch all the time, but if I was doing an M. Night-a-thon, it's probably one of the times I would probably watch it. Because that's usually some of the times I find myself watching some of the Freddy movies, or a couple Freddy movies, or a couple of the Jason movies. There's only one I'm watching in the whole series. I mean, it's not like I could just take this movie and just pop it in and watch it out of the blue. Like I said, the only reason I watched it because I hadn't seen it before.